Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Sit Down by the Fire. I'm Eric Vierthaler of Vierthaler Studios, and I'm here with my next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Daprocida. I'm a Canadian film and television actor.
Awesome. Well, it definitely is a huge honor to have you here. And so, I guess
Thank you.
yeah, of course, anytime. So my first question is, what got you into? What inspired you to get into the film world?
Well, I actually started in the entertainment kind of thing right at 4 years old. I was a classically trained pianist and singer. I competed all over Canada, a little bit in the US, and grew up doing that. I took the Royal Conservatory of Music and finished that at a young age of 13. And I did a few years of teaching piano as well. And then that led me into actual musicals. And I started doing musicals, a little bit of theater. But I always loved going to the movies. So I used to watch movies all the time, go, oh, wow, that's just so awesome, right? So I grew up in a small town. There's no chance of doing that. So right at graduation, I had my sights set on Vancouver, and I said, well, I'm going to head out there and just give her a go. And that's kind of what I did. I went out there and started doing a little bit of theater out there. Eventually met some people, figured out, how to get an agent, and started, doing some auditions and getting into some film work. Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess you could say the rest is history afterwards.
Yeah, kind of history. Then I took a little bit of, life turns and stuff like that. And now I came back to it. I actually stepped away from the industry for quite a few years, just to, got married, raising my family. We
Awesome.
moved out to Alberta here, raised my kids, and actually took a big break. And in the last couple of years, now that they've grown, I'm started getting back into my old shoes again. So.
Yeah, well, hey, and I mean, of course, there always is that saying that family comes first. So,
Yeah, and just sometimes life, I wasn't intending to come to Calgary. It was kind of a funny story. This was back in the late 90s. There was very similar to what we just recently had. There was a strike in the Actors Union out in Vancouver. So all productions kind of just halted for, geez, a good first half of the year. So I had lots of relatives and friends in Calgary, Alberta. So I thought, well, nothing's going on anyway. I'll just, go hang out with some friends and wait till this blows over. And came to Calgary, and a friend of mine said, yeah, there's a show you should audition for down here. So I was like, all right. So I did, got a part in the show and met my wife, and the rest is history. We got married. I stayed here. I was like, there's no big film industry in Calgary at that time. So I was like, let's take a different path, and did that for a while. And now I'm getting back into it, like I said. So.
awesome. Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that you play the piano because I actually have been playing since 2005. And I can't believe that that was almost 20 years ago now. I mean, time just zooms on by.
Oh, it does. It does. You
Yeah.
blink and decades go by. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, was there any song like that inspired you to start playing the piano?
Well, I was 4 years old. I was really, it was actually just before I was 4 years old. I had a little, from what my mom tells me, I had this little toy piano. And she just came downstairs one day and heard me playing some actual songs on it. I learned by ear on this toy piano. So she was like, ding, 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 let's piano. Got a piano prodigy. So right away in September, she threw me into lessons, and the rest was history. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, but yeah, I was very successful with my piano playing. I won many, many awards, and I was always this young fellow competing against adults because I was so advanced in my Royal Conservatory that I was playing against, here I was 10 years old, 11 years old, playing against people that were 19, 20 years old. And yeah, just spent my youth doing that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty similar to what happened to me. What inspired me was the first time that I ever saw John Carpenter's Halloween. Like, just
Mhm.
the moment that I heard that Halloween theme, like it instantly put goosebumps down my whole entire body. And then afterwards, I
Yeah.
was like, I want to learn how to play that. And then that was the first song that I ever learned how to play. And then, funnily enough, I also never took piano lessons either.
Okay.
I taught myself, and how I taught myself is that I just watched a lot of videos about it on YouTube. So,
That's the beauty of today. There's all the videos. Everybody can teach themselves pretty much anything these days.
exactly.
Unfortunately, I started in like 79 was when I started piano lessons, 1979. So back then there wasn't an internet or
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and I mean, the internet really, really became useful like back when COVID was a thing. So
Yeah, a lot of people picked up some pretty interesting skills. I actually learned how to make bread myself during COVID. I was
nice.
making bread. I was turning into this master chef. I was making homemade pasta. I was doing all kinds of things during COVID. It was pretty, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and also, and one of the nice things, well, I mean, of course, there were a lot of bad things that happened during COVID. I mean, there's absolutely
Absolutely.
no denying that. But one of the good things that happened is that, as far as I can tell, a lot of the movie industry actually moved on to Zoom now.
That's right. Yeah, it actually opened up, which was nice, especially for people like me living way up here in Canada. It opened up, pretty much a global market, because before you kind of everything was an in-person audition, and you kind of worked where you lived. And me living in Calgary, like I said, there wasn't a big industry at that time. So COVID did help that with the self-tape world coming out. We're now able to submit all over the place, and in the last couple of years, it's enabled me to reach out to right across Canada, of course. I did a film in Europe last year. Now I've also, am working into the United States. I got representation down there. I just recently acquired my O1 visa to go work down there. So, yeah, things are opening up really good now. So, very, very excited about, what we're able to do now.
Yeah, and I mean, because of that, it's made it a lot easier for people outside of LA to actually get jobs in LA.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I also saw that on your Instagram page that you're also a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, I'm SAG eligible. I'm actually part of ACTRA, which is the Canadian union, and they're affiliated with SAG. So that automatically I'm now SAG eligible. So I can really become a full member at any time, just whenever I choose to. I haven't made the decision to fully join yet, just because I am just coming into the US. I don't want to I basically want to work across a wide range of things. I want to also do stuff that's going to end up in the festival. Some of that stuff is non-union work. So I kind of just want to get a good broad exposure down there before I join, right? But
Right, of
it is
course.
an option to me anytime. So I do plan to join SAG. I actually joined the SAG strike when I was visiting in New York. Myself and my son, we were there. So I was like, my son saw it there. He's kind of getting into the film industry as well, and he's like, "Dad, why don't we join the why don't we join the picket line today?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, all right, let's do it." So we did. Yeah, it was kind
Nice,
of fun. We were marching with Vincent D'Onofrio was in the same march as us that day. It was kind of cool. Yeah.
nice, man. Yeah, the funny thing about all that stuff that was going on in Hollywood, I actually was just about to get into SAG, but then all of that chaos was going on in Hollywood, so I was forced to put it on hold. And I was like,
Mhm.
hey, it sucks. It's a double-edged sword. It's because it was bad timing on my end, but also at the same time, I definitely did understand why that they did all those Hollywood strikes. It's because the actors like were wanting better pay,
Mhm.
and the whole thing with artificial intelligence. I'm like, okay, that's all very justifiable reasons. It was just kind of crappy timing on my end.
Well, and it is. And joining, an actors union is a timing thing, right? It has to be right, the right time in your career to join the union. I know a lot of people, they say, well, just join. If you're acting, join the union as soon as you can. But I believe there is a right time to join. You want to build up your resume to a point where it's impressive enough that you're in this, and then this is my opinion. Other people may differ, but I
Right.
think build it up to the point where you have enough diversity, enough, you know, basically a bulk there before you join the union, because now once you're joined, you're going to be going after these bigger production stuff, and they're going to want to see that experience from you, right? So
Of course.
if you're too early on, you're in the union, but you only have a couple, little small little guest appearances there, then it's I think in my personal opinion it could be a hurt thing, but it could not be either. So that's just
Yeah,
a personal opinion.
yeah, and I mean, as far as I can tell, the movie industry definitely does want people who are experienced, which makes sense,
Of course.
since that they want to have people like who know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I say that from my experience because I did join the actor union in Canada, which again, like I said, is the SAG affiliate here. and I joined it early on, which was great. But it depending on where you live, if there is lots and lots of union work, then you're probably fine, right? When I lived in Vancouver, it was great to be in the actors union because there was lots of actor union work, right? Once I moved over to Calgary, there's a little bit of stuff that happens here, but it's a very small amount of union work. So that means now all that other work, I can't even go out for, right? So
That's a shame.
yeah, and when the bulk of the work where you live is non-union and you joined a union, well, now you've just basically taken yourself quite a bit out of the marketplace, right? So again, if you're in Los Angeles, maybe it's probably worthwhile to join the union because there's going to be lots of union work. If you're somewhere out Midwest, maybe where there's not, it's mostly non-union. You just have to, like I said, it's individual. You have to play it out. What works for you, the timing, everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I mean in retrospective, in retrospective, because I was forced to put joining SAG on hold, it definitely gave me the advantage, like to get more work as a non-union actor. So
Yeah, and in my opinion, work is work. If you can do good work all the time, you just all you're doing is building on yourself, right? You have more stuff to show. You just even just the experience of it, right? You may be able to play roles that you wouldn't get the opportunity in just straight union projects, right? Because you don't have the name yet, you don't have the experience. So this will give you an opportunity to play those roles, put them on your reel, to really show people what you can do. Hopefully, some of those will go to film festivals. People with the right eyes will see them, and that's where things can progress from there, right?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, being a part of the movie industry, it's definitely just one big epic journey.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine it has for you, and it most certainly has been for me as well.
It is, and you know what? With age too and experience, you kind of start to figure the business of it out as well. Because as actors, it's easy just to say I want to act, but it's an industry, so you got to kind of understand the industry. You got to understand your situation, your surroundings. Like I said, depending on where you live, you're going to make certain decisions, right? Where you know as a young actor, you probably wouldn't think the same way. Like I just know that from experience. As a young actor, it's just like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. You right? You just listen to what everybody else is telling you because you haven't experienced it yourself, right? But as you get older, you kind of say, oh, okay, all right. I didn't need to do that. I could have do the, I could take this approach, that approach. In my opinion, is just if you're an actor, just try to act. Act as much as you can. Like take whatever work you can, build on it. You always get better, practice auditioning. I self-submit to lots of stuff. And a lot of times it's for me, it's to do it for practice, right? I'm always want to practice my auditions. Is a little bit of a stretch role. Yes, I want to stretch myself a little bit over here. I don't have something like that on my resume. It's not a great paying gig, but if I can do that, get that on my reel, that's great, a great thing, right? So it's
Yep,
just
yep.
kind of thinking about that stuff as an actor, how you're going to market yourself, how you're going to expand things, right? So you can really have something to show people, right?
Yeah, and there's a great saying, "Great minds think alike." And one of the things that I do on my channel, I actually started a series called Advice for Actors, and a lot of the same things you said, I I actually a lot of the same things you said, I actually said in my videos too. So
It's awesome. Good. Yeah, it's so everybody thinks that just I just got to get that big studio break. Well, it's like you got to understand their perspective too. You got to build to that point, right?
yep,
They're spending, some of them are up in the hundreds of millions of dollars, these productions. They want to know that, you're capable of taking on this role. You're capable of delivering on what, they're expecting because the last thing they want is to get into a contract with somebody that can't deliver at the end of the day, right? So
exactly.
you got to be fair. I know it's easy to point fingers at big production studios and say, hey, well, you guys make all the money. You guys are there. Well, no, there's there's a whole progression of things that have to happen, so you got to be respectful of the business sense of it and just kind of work your way up to where you can say I am that guy, you can rely on me, and it's always proven an experience, right? So if you can just get that experience out there, say hey, I've done A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, and Yeah, and I mean, nobody wants to have their money go to waste, and especially when it's millions of dollars on the line.
Mhm.
Because once you lose that money, it's going to be really hard to get it back. And I mean,
Absolutely.
there unfortunately have even been some companies like once they lose money, they and then go out of business, and that's the last thing that a business wants
Absolutely.
happen. So and yeah, and as far as like the whole being open to acting roles, one of the things that I said in one of my videos is that a really good example of that, Jamie Lee Curtis has been very vocal saying that she's not a fan of horror movies. But however, though, it was the original Halloween that got her name out there, and Jamie Lee Curtis has also been vocal saying that yeah, even though I don't like the genre, but I will acknowledge that it does have its place in the world. And if
Mhm.
it wasn't for the original Halloween, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And just to imagine, if Jamie Lee Curtis would have said no to doing Halloween, she would have missed out on so much.
That's right. And as actors, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself and say, well, I only want to be a dramatic actor or I
Yep.
only want to be a comedic actor. You should analyze yourself and you should say, I got okay, all this experience, but I've never been in a horror movie before. I should get one of those on my resume, right? It's no different than any other skill when, if you want to be a carpenter, right? If you've only built walls, but you've never built a roof, right? You say, oh, I should probably get some experience building a roof, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like something similar happened to me with my journey. Like for the longest time, my acting resume primarily had like doing fan films of like popular horror IPs like Friday the 13th, Saw and all that. And like that's what the majority of my resume was. And I was like, I do love horror movies. Do not get me wrong, but I do want to have other things on my resume too. And then when I was offered like to do the Tempest, I was like, hey, it's something very different from horror. It's more drama and obviously more Shakespearean. And I was like, hey,
Mhm.
it's something else on my resume. And yeah, and I had a few comedies here and there on my resume too. But yeah, I mean, there are some actors who are okay with being typecast. As far as I can tell, Tobin Bell from the Saw movies, he
Mhm.
seems to be okay with being typecast, but I guess it just depends on the person and if they're okay with it. But if you want a diverse, well, and then yeah, I definitely would. But yeah, I definitely would recommend like trying to branch off into other genres.
Yeah, and exactly. And it boils down to your goals too, right? There are some actors that are out there just for the simple fact it's a job. I get booked as a detective all the time. I can make a good living playing a detective for the rest of my life. I'm not really big into, going any further than that. I've worked steady, so and hey, good for you. If you play great detective and you're happy just being a detective all the time, do it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, what matters, as long as it puts food on the table, pays the bills, and on top of that, and as long as you're happy too.
Yeah, yeah, and then you got the other actors that just they don't care about the money. It's not about the money. They want to do it all, or they want to just
Yeah,
play extreme characters, right? It's all about, they want to impress their audience, right? They want to really get something out there, right? So again, it just boils down to goals, what you want.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, out of all the acting roles that you've had, would you say that you had a favorite one?
Well, one of the sets I probably had the most fun on was we did a film called Creature, and I played a Navy SEAL. So it was just more. So it was just like being on a playground. Which is why I had such a good time. It was
Right.
more about the role. We were jumping out of helicopters. We got to, fire all kinds of different weapons, automatic weapons, flamethrowers. We had this great set to work on. It was just for me, the more than the actual acting role, it was fun, just a good time, right? It was like, oh wow, what are we gonna do today?
Right.
What kind of crazy stuff are we gonna do?
Exactly.
So yeah, that was pretty enjoyable. Role wise, trying to think I like different things about different characters. So I don't particularly have a favorite. I can say I have what I really liked about this particular role, what I really liked about that particular role. I do enjoy playing the bad guys, like because I find you can just excuse me, with the bad guys you can really take it to, you can either be just the most charming bad guy in the world, or you can actually be like scary, intimidating. I find you can just do a really big range, right?
Hmm.
A lot of times the protagonists, right? You still at the end of the day got to be the hero, right? So,
Right.
you got to be likable. You always got to be somewhat, even though you can still find nice, depending on the genre you're doing in, right? Nice dramatic roles or, comedy or that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're not likable as a protagonist, I mean, it doesn't really work for the film. Even if you're a bad guy protagonist, like that's one of my favorite, like Breaking Bad was, for me, was a great role because to be you're the lead character, but you just so much going on with that character, right? You're the bad guy, but you still like the bad guy and you kind of root for him. And it's like, oh God, yeah, I hope you succeed, even though you're doing, really crappy things, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those kind of roles would be like just gold, just ideal to be able to play those kind of things, right? But
Right. Yeah. And I can't help but feeling that that's why so many people love Thanos, like from the Marvel movies. It's because that, yeah, what he was doing was wrong, but you also understood why that he was doing it.
yeah, that's true. I mean, if you in your heart believe that this is the best thing for the world, everybody may think, you're an awful person, but you deep down think like, no, man, trust me. In the end, you're going to see I'm doing you a big favor. I'm sacrificing everything for
Exactly.
you, right? So sometimes it's kind of hard, even in real life. Sometimes because we experience too, we have some really bad people, some evil leaders and stuff like that. But sometimes you got to step back and go, well, I think those people think they're doing the right thing. So it's even though, you're sitting on the other side going, God, we see them as evil. God, you're doing these awful acts. You're doing these things. They really think they're doing the right thing.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, okay, so if you're going to play these kind of people, you got to kind of get that as well. You got to say, okay, yeah, I'm playing this guy who's going to like just kill hundreds of people. You know what I mean? Nobody wakes up and thinks that I'm going to do that just because it's bad, unless
Yeah.
you're playing a psychotic serial killer or something, right? They
Yeah.
just want to see people suffer, right? But if you're playing somebody in a position where, well, I'm this guy who's doing this because I think I'm helping my country or I'm helping my family or friends that were wronged or something, you know, at the end of the day, murder is murder. It's bad. So there's not a good reason to do it. But we find ourselves watching these guys sometimes, and it's like, oh yeah, but I'm still rooting for him to go and kill those 100 people because I like the reason he's doing it for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's doing it for to avenge his family, or he's doing it to bring down some corrupt people, right? But so it's you got to always play those things in the background, right? So that's why I personally like playing bad guys because I still think bad guys they always think they're doing the right thing even though they're not, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that I also think makes a great villain is like that if it's like the complete, if it's like similar to the hero, but it's like the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And what I also think makes a great villain, it's one of the reasons why I think Scar from The Lion King is one of the greatest movie villains of all time. He wasn't so much of a physical threat, but more of a psychological threat. Like knowing like that he would gaslight, like knowing that he gaslighted Simba, gaslighted the hyenas and
Mhm.
entire pride. So yeah, and knowing that there actually are people like that in real life. And then I feel like if you make your villain feel like somebody who you would meet in real life, I feel like that makes him an even greater villain.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you can, yeah, what I was saying earlier, you can make somebody like you being a bad guy. You're doing a great job.
Exactly, yeah.
You're winning over the audience by being the nasty guy in the movie, but you're still winning over the audience. It's a great way to play things, right?
Yeah, so on the topic of villains, would you say that you have a favorite villain like that you have seen in a movie?
Favorite one. Well, like I said, in Breaking Bad, he was one of my favorite kind of bad guys because I still see him as a bad guy, right? With good intentions, right?
Right, of course.
So Bryan Cranston was one of my, yeah, he played one of my favorite bad guys. And I also liked Giancarlo Esposito's character in there.
Mhm.
He was amazing. I think that's some of his greatest work. And just yeah, I loved how he was just from charming businessman to cold-hearted, you know, cold-hearted villain in in a split second, right? So
Right.
off the top of my head, those are two of ones that I've really enjoyed watching the last, especially the last few years, right?
Mhm.
Um, trying to, there's another one in a film, but anyway, if it comes to me, I'll just spit it out. How's that?
Yeah, that works, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Breaking Bad because one of the most common things I get told that I look like Walter White
Oh yeah,
quite a
right on.
yeah, quite a bit, yeah, I mean, if I cut my hair shorter and if I
Yeah.
shaved off my facial hair, yeah, I definitely would look like him a
Oh,
little.
cool. Yeah, great show. Even the follow-up, Better Call Saul, another great show. Just yeah, those brothers wrote some really great stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely, and yeah, so, if you had to pick a movie, what would you say is your favorite movie of all time?
I think I still go back to Son of a Woman. As far as like on just an acting perspective, I still like every time I watch it, I still get a little chills watching, some of the scenes, like, those butterflies when you watch them. And I've seen the movie many, many times, right? But it's just was so well acted. Like Al Pacino just blew my mind in that film, right? I was when I saw his monologue and stuff, I go, man, that's how you deliver kind of a monologue, right? He just it's unbelievable. It's just so powerful. So I do go back to that movie a lot, and I still go back and watch it every once in a while, right? It's a great movie. I do have a few other favorites. Like, I mean, I really like Gangs in New York. I just really liked the whole concept of it, the period of it. Godfather, of course, is a movie I'll
Mm.
watch again and again and again. And I actually really enjoyed the series that was made. I don't know if you saw the series The Offer.
I I don't believe I have, did that come out
Okay.
recently?
Well, I think it's still on Prime, but I mean, if you're a fan of The Godfather, it's a great series to watch because it's all about the whole season is about them making The Godfather. So
Okay.
it's they go to the actual locations. It's really cool. You get to find out all the hurdles, which is a story in itself, just trying to get that movie made and trying to get the actors they wanted and fighting with the production studios and all the hurdles. The mafia was involved. Frank Sinatra was totally against them making this movie. So they went through all these hurdles and they found, and the cast did a great job of portraying the real people too. It was really, really good. Yeah, I should check it out.
Yeah, honestly, I'm actually rather surprised that I have not heard of that, is,
Called
like,
The
that
Offer. The Offer.
yeah, like, is that, like, on Netflix or what?
It was on. I watched it. I think it's still on Prime, and it's just
Okay,
one season. I think 10 episodes, 8 to 10 episodes, something like that, and it just tells the whole story. Yeah, really well done.
awesome, well,
Great for Godfather fans.
oh, yeah, definitely, I will be sure to check it out,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the last Godfather anything that fans got, I mean, last thing I can remember, there was, like, a video game that came out for, like, the Xbox 360, but that was, like, excuse me, like, 2006, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so, but yeah, I have seen The Godfather, and yeah, and I definitely thought it was a great movie. I've only seen the first one, never seen the second one. I mean, there are some people like who even will go as far as saying that they think the second one is even better.
Hmm.
And
Yes, and I don't disagree. Um, it's a very good story, especially with the back and forth, right? It's kind of seeing the progression of how things came to be to where they are. The first one though is well, you definitely have to watch the first one. First and one and two are very important to see, and everybody has their different opinions of what. A lot of things I really liked on the first one, and they actually did it in the second too, with all the stuff with Vito Corleone, kind of coming up. But in the first one, they really captured like a lot of, because I'm Italian, I'm full-blooded Italian, so a lot of the stuff watching them do the way they interacted together, cooking around, being in the kitchen cooking together. Here, these guys, they're mobsters, they live these awful lives, but you see them in the setting doing things that everyday Italians do, making pasta sauce and talking and laughing and joking and like, you know what I mean? So you get to see, I really liked how they brought, the real life stuff of, how Italians live normally into this kind of film that there's all this extra awful stuff that happens, of course, but you get to really understand the family bonds and that kind of thing, right? So it was
Right.
really, really well done, right? Oh,
Yeah.
another really good film, still one of my favorites, is The Big Night. Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's probably about
I have
25 years old. Yeah, terrific movie. Terrific movie. I mean, it holds a real closer place because they're two Italian brothers too. So it's, again, it's a cultural thing that comes in for me. But Stanley Tucci was amazing. I think Stanley Tucci is one of the most talented actors out there right now, and he's just so diverse in everything he does, and he does an excellent job of everything he does. I've never watched a Stanley Tucci performance and go, "Yeah, you weren't right for that. You shouldn't have did that." He's just phenomenal. Really talented guy.
Yeah. So I could take it that he is your favorite actor of all time.
Yeah, I'd probably say this day and age he probably is. Yeah. And his family comes from the same part of Italy that my family comes from, down in Calabria. Very
Oh
close.
well.
Not the
Oh
same
well.
town, but the same region. We're really, really close. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, isn't that a coincidence, right?
Yeah, it is kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so you also said that you like to sing. So have you started a band?
No, not in recent years. I did a little bit when I was younger, prior to being married. I used to play in it with a group. We did more Latino music. We played at a restaurant kind of on the weekends, and people would come there. And after finished the dining at a certain time, the dance floor would open up, and we'd get all these really great ballroom dancers come in, and yeah, they just come and dance all night. So it was just a really lively, fun kind of place. I've done some other than that, I would just do like some guest stuff with some different bands. They would, we'd be playing at an event and they'd say, okay, well, why don't we do a few numbers and stuff? So, just go and rehearse a few, get a few things together. In recent years, like I do stuff more with my family. Like my wife sings, my daughter's excellent singer. So we get asked to play at, different events or weddings, funerals. We do kind of that kind of stuff together. And that's kind of more that's usually when we'll perform. It's just some more specific events, right? Nothing regular.
Nice. And so
Yeah, I've
yeah,
been asked to do a couple band things. It's just the band thing is it's kind of like theater. That's why I haven't done a lot of theater in the last few years because my kids now are just getting into their late teens. So maybe in the next chapter I can start going back to that. It's the time commitment to those kind of things. Like you have to be at rehearsal at a specific time,
right.
right? You have to be same with the band. Once you make that commitment, that commitment's for like 5 6 months. Band is pretty much permanent, right? You make that commitment until you decide to end the band, kind of thing, right? So right now for my lifestyle, and it's also still my main passion too, is film. And it fits well with my life. I can go in and do my job. I can plan and say, okay, I got, 4 or 5 days of filming, or I got, got to go here for the week, do stuff there. Just fits my life better.
Yeah, and I mean ultimately if you don't have the time to commit to it, well, and then clearly you shouldn't communicate to sorry, uh not communicate. You shouldn't commit
That's
to
right.
yeah.
That's right. When you do, especially something like a theater production or something, you have to be there. People are relying on you. I mean, you have to be anywhere. Like, I mean, take any kind of job, you got to be there, right? But
Yeah,
you know, sometimes at certain jobs you're sick. There's other employees. Well, sometimes at theater production, if you don't show up for a little bit, you're messing up everybody, right? They're trying to put on a show, and you're missing important people, right? So
exactly. Yeah, like reminds me of when I did The Tempest. I remember that I did show up, but I showed up a little bit later because I was just getting off work, and people were saying, "We were wondering where in the world that you were, and we were wondering if you were going to come." And I was like, "Hey, I, I did still show up on time. It was just a little bit later." I was like, "Sorry, I was just getting off work, and I was rushing down here as fast as I
yeah,
could."
Oh yeah, you'll panic a crew really fast when somebody's not show up. Everybody's in a frenzy, going, "Oh my God, where are you?"
Exactly, yeah, and I mean, if you don't show up whatsoever, I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna you're gonna make some people upset.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to commit and get it done, right?
Exactly, and I mean, even at that 9 to 5 job, people don't want to waste their time, and I mean, people want to have somebody who's going to be reliable and show up. I mean, sometimes your alarm won't go off, and if you didn't attend on it, well, and then I get it, things do come up, but but yet you do still definitely do want to do your best to be on time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Commitment's everything.
Exactly. So if you had one dream role, what would that be?
Well, I definitely love to work with a couple of the, great directors. Love to do some with Martin Scorsese, of course. That'd be a dream. I'd love to be, act alongside Stanley Tucci. That, be another, another dream. Work with somebody that caliber. Yeah, I don't know if it's so much the role or just to get that experience with those, have somebody who's had, like Martin Scorsese, 50 years of, you know, directing and, to get that kind of experience and just be able to work off that and just, collaborate in that kind of setting would just be amazing. Right.
Oh yeah.
And to me, like I said, it's not so much the role because I mean, there may be a role where I said, yeah, I don't like that role, but so far, I don't think I've ever come across a role to say, I don't want to try that unless I've done it already like a bunch of times. It's like, yeah, okay, you know, okay, playing another character just like this. I've done this already 10 times. But if it's something, you know, really unique or that I haven't done before, I just think there's just so much. Just haven't really came across a role that I think where I'd say, yeah, no, I don't like this character. I don't like this role. I don't like, because everything's different, right? You can always just bring something new, something different. And so it wouldn't really matter what the role was for me. It's just the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, a really good analogy that would be like saying you're gonna have the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner like for so long. And I mean, yeah, like at first it may be great, but after a while, it's gonna get tiring.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not the characters you play. I can maybe see maybe it's certain people you may not want to work in or a certain genre. You just like, I don't like that genre. I don't want to ever do that ever. Fine. That's a personal thing. If you don't like certain things, some people may never want to do action movies. They may not. Or they may not want to work with certain people. I just don't like the way they edit. I don't like the way their finished product. They do these, strange things that I just not into. Right. I mean, you may have that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it just depends on the person, depends on what their preferences are.
Yeah.
And there also are some people in the industry, I'm not going to mention any names, who have a reputation to be difficult to work with. Either that or they may have had a past feud with said person
Mhm.
before. And I totally would get why that they wouldn't want to work with them again, since that they caused them problems before. So yeah, I would say that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. And I've always found that there's always something to learn somewhere. You know what I mean? You always pick up something new. I've never gone anywhere like where I haven't said, "Oh, okay." Like you just little things. Like sometimes it's the smallest little thing. It's like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try that in my next audition. I'm gonna try this." You just always find little things, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so as far as the auditions go, something they're very common with actors. A lot of actors get nervous going into an audition.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to actors about that?
Are we talking about the live audition now? Like live when you're going into an in person?
Either one.
Well, The first thing is do your work, your homework. Be prepared because you'll bring your nerve levels down quite a bit when you feel, yeah, yeah, I know what I want. I know what I'm doing. Okay, I feel confident with this character. Another thing I would suggest is because I experienced this as a young actor. Going, you do all this work, you prepare your character one way, and then you go in and then they say, okay, so this is how we're going to do it. And they basically just throw everything, they tell you this is what they want, this is how it's going to be done. So everything that you did now is out the window and now you're having to improvise, right? So prepare your character in a bunch of different ways, especially if you're going in for a live one. And I'll just prepare you for something different, right? Like, because they will sometimes take you for a loop and they'll say, okay, yeah, we liked how you played this angry stuff, but we don't want an angry. We want you to actually play it funny. It's like, oh, funny. Oh, geez. I'm not ready to do it funny, right? And that's where you're going to, your nerves are going to get out of control, right? So that's, yeah, my number one thing is just try to prepare it and prepare it in different ways and, be prepared to change kind of thing. And listen, once hopefully you'll get the opportunity to do it your way. And if they do and they request something of you, listen, you know, really understand. Is that what you want? If you don't understand what they're asking, you ask a question. Some people say, I can't talk in the thing, in an audition. Well, if they ask you to do something and you're not really sure what they want, just ask the question. Just say, okay, so are you saying, you want a complete 360 version of this guy? You want me to be like big in my facial expressions or big in my, movement or, ask the questions. Just try to clarify, right? Or otherwise, you might just throw your opportunity out the window because you didn't really understand the question and you just kind of winged it. You just said, okay, well, I think he means this, so I'll just do that. Right. And then they're sitting there going, geez, he just can't seem to follow direction. Right. So it's important to listen. Another, anything else I can advise on auditions? Just be polite, be you. When you come in, I mean, you have to be your character when you're actually doing your performance. But when, they're coming in, they say, they want a slate or whatever, just, be you, show them, I'm a good guy to work with, be confident. And yeah, I think if you do some of that, all that kind of stuff ahead of time, you will, I don't think you'll ever not be a little bit nervous. I mean, you kind of go in there, I'm probably going to get one shot to do this. Maybe I'll get lucky. They'll ask me to do it again. But you're going to always have a little bit of nerves, right? So just
Of course.
be as prepared as you can. So at least you can push through your nerves and, and give it your best, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to add on to that, I would say, yeah, you definitely do got to step outside of your comfort zone because if you don't, you and I could miss out on an opportunity like that could forever change your life. And yeah, and as far as the listening goes, I mean, ultimately, you are trying to fulfill like what their vision is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I'm ultimately as an actor, yeah, you can add ideas and that's fine, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's not your vision, it is theirs.
And that's right. And all you can do is give your vision, right? Because you don't know at this point what they want. I mean, you've been asked to come in an audition. You're given a really small piece of a script. You have to fill in a lot of blanks yourself. So, you be confident in what you do. Say, I'm going to, do this. But like I said, prepare it a couple different ways just for your own sake. But, put forth about one you think is the best. This is what I think this character is. That's what I think this scene is. Be 100% confident in. You may have picked the wrong choice, but you gave it, right? Sometimes you can actually change the director's mind and say, "Oh my God, we never thought of this character this way. I loved what this guy did," and that happens, right? One part I got a part in. I was barely 20, or maybe 20, well, early 20s. The character was nearly 40. And I was even, first of all, shocked why they bringing me in. I'm like so much younger in this character, right? But I
Right.
ended up getting the part. So, don't ever think, oh, I'm not this guy or I'm not this guy, whatever. Just give your version of that guy or a girl if you're, the ladies, if you're playing a female part, give your version of the character and do your best. And that's all you can do. Because in
Yeah,
the film industry, there's so many factors, right? You just may not look right. You may look too much like the lead guy. You may have, just you're too tall, too short. It happens. That's just what it is. Just always do good work. Be professional. Do your job. Learn your lines, especially when you get on set. Come there prepared. You know what I mean? But yeah, do your job as an actor. Do your homework a little bit. Figure out your character. I mean, you don't have a lot of time with auditions. I mean, you're not going to be able to do the in-depth work you're going to be able to do once you got the part and you have, a few weeks with the script and you can mess around and really think it out through. But you do still have to do that in a speed setting. It's like, okay, well, figure out the basics. Who's this guy? Who's this? Do as much as you can. Right. The more you bring the more you bring to the character, the more you bring to that audition, and just better your chances of get in the role.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as like, oh, being too tall or skinny or whatever, that's also a very common thing that a lot of actors deal with is the rejection.
Mhm.
And I mean, ultimately, what actors have to realize is that just because you didn't get a role, it doesn't mean it's anything personal against you. It just means that you're
No,
right for it.
no, and even beating yourself up after you have to do your auditions, and then you have to learn. And if you can't do this as a person, maybe go out and see if there's people that can help you with this. Sometimes if you have a therapist or whatever, anything you can do that can
Yeah,
make you do your audition, brush it off, and move on. It's
yeah,
done. You did your job. Your audition was your job. Do it and move on. And then what's next? Worry about what's next. And if it comes back to you, it comes back to you. If it doesn't, that's the joys of being an actor.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing about being an actor is that you really do have to be resilient, and you do
Yeah.
have to be thick-skinned. And I mean, ultimately,
Hmm.
if you can't handle rejection, I definitely would, like you said, recommend seeing a therapist. I I mean, obviously, there isn't anything wrong with getting help, but I mean, if said person, just doesn't like the rejection that much, even though yes, it does suck to get rejected, but I mean,
Hmm.
ultimately, I think that they maybe should reconsider if they're going to be an actor or
Yeah, you got to find what works. And like, I don't ever like to think of it as rejection. It's just that, that wasn't, that opportunity wasn't for you. What's the next opportunity? They're just all little opportunities, right?
yeah,
And you know, unless you're getting Jackson directors are saying, the casting director saying, I'm never bringing you in again because you're so, you're just either horrible what you do, or I don't like if you're getting rejected to be seen, then period. Then you're doing something wrong and you need to adjust some things in your perform. But if
exactly.
they bring you back, you did a good job. You obviously did a good enough job. They want to see you again. They just didn't, you weren't right for that role, but they want to see you again. You did something right.
Yeah, yeah,
So those are the little wins you got to look at and say, okay, well, at least they're bringing me back. So, that's good.
yeah. And I heard of a story once. I don't know if you heard of it. Like it was when Meryl Streep auditioned for the King Kong remake from the 1970s. I believe
Hmm.
Dino de Laurentiis. I probably butchered his name, but yeah, he said to Meryl Streep in like Latin or whatever, "Why did you bring me this ugly thing?" But the thing is, what he
Let
didn't
me do
realize,
it.
uh, she actually could speak in that language, and so then therefore she understood what he was saying. I mean, that's one of the things that I admire about Meryl is that knowing that she definitely easily could have taken that personal and she could have gone, oh no, like this person in Hollywood said that I'm ugly, therefore I should give up acting. But no, I mean, afterwards she persisted on, and she got far afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, it happens. And so what you need to say, okay, well, it's not, I kind of experienced a similar thing with my first agent I ever went out to audition for, and he took me on. But I mean, one of the things you say, it looks right at me. I was only like 18, 19 at the time. So, you're still an impressionable teenager. But I mean, he looked at me and says, well, you're not a good looking guy. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not here for compliments. I'm just here to say, do you want to send me out on auditions because I want to act? So you can take it either as a bad thing or whatever. And then after, talking for a bit, he goes, by the way, I wasn't saying you're like an ugly person. He did clarify. But at the time, I could have, been like, oh God, like, that's it. I'm just ugly and I'm never going to be in a thing. But you know what? You just take it as it is. And it's like, oh, great. Well, I'm not asking to be the blonde haired, blue eyes hero on, riding a unicorn, going there and lassoing maidens and that kind of thing to say, I want to act, right? And I want to act in all kinds of things, good, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? I want to do it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to kind of just go with the flow. And yeah, good on Meryl Streep. And a lot of people have experienced that stuff. Rejection is just part of it. You just, like I said, I hate the word rejection because it's just not your time, really. That's all it is. Mark Ruffalo is prime example. That he talks lots about how he went on like hundreds of auditions, hundreds of them, and just couldn't book a role. Like nobody. And then finally, when he did break in, people go, "Where are you? Where have you been?" It's like, I've always been here. You guys, I've auditioned over and over and over, and you guys just never gave me a part. But you can either stop or you can just keep on acting. If you're an actor, just keep on acting. Act in whatever you can. At some point, somebody's going to say, "Hey, we want you for this part," right?
Yeah, exactly. And I even heard that even Arnold Schwarzenegger went through something similar. People were saying, "Oh well, we don't know if you can make it. It's because you have a complicated last name and your accent."
Oh yeah.
But what I love about Arnold, say what you want about some of the stuff in his personal life, but you got to give credit where credit's due.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely loved like how he didn't take no as an answer. Like he continued on, and then ultimately he did Terminator, and then the rest is
Yep.
history. And nowadays, you'll never meet anybody like who doesn't know how to say his last name.
Exactly, right. And that's what it is. It's just you as a person just saying like, well, I want to do this, so here it is. Here's my audition. Okay, you don't want it. Okay, well, I still want to do this, so now I'm gonna do this audition, right? And, oh, you don't want me? Okay, well, I'm gonna audition over here. And if as long as you're willing to keep putting yourself forward, keep putting in that effort, keep putting in that work because you want to do it, eventually, so it's gonna happen. And I always just look at my auditions as work myself. Like I just say, oh, okay, I get to play this role. I get to play this role, and I just do my self tape and do it the best I can. It's like great. I liked it. Great. I'm sending it off. Right. You like it. Great. You don't like it. Great. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of the things that I say is life's way too short. Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's things you want to go do it now, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be alive forever. And
Yeah.
the last thing people want to happen is to live a life of regrets. And so
Yeah.
if something you want to go do, acting, whatever it is, no excuses, just do it.
That's right. And if you just keep on going, I mean, there's nothing to be regretful for. It's like, yeah, okay, I still kept doing it. If you quit and just say I'm going to stop because this just ain't working out, that's the one you're going to look back on and go, geez, if I just kept going, maybe I just did, why did I stop? Once you stop, you just say, I quit. I'm done. No more of this crap. Then it's on you, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, you gave up. You quit. So,
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, you only fail only when you give up. And I mean, heck, there are plenty of actors like who do make it later on in life, like Ian McKellen. I
mhm,
believe he made it when he was in his 60s. And I mean, heck, even Tobin Bell, who I mentioned earlier, like he made it like when he was in his 60s. And even and Boris Karloff, even though that he's no longer with us, but Boris Karloff finally made it when he was 44, like when he got cast as the Frankenstein monster. And Bela Lugosi, he was 49, like when he played his most iconic role, like
mhm.
the Count, like in the original Dracula. And, and yeah, and I mean, age also should not be an excuse either.
Yeah. It shouldn't be. Like I'm older now, and if anything, my life experiences has taught me how to deal with things better, how to just, you learn, you start realizing, okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I like to do, right? And if you treat it like almost like it is a hobby, a fun thing to do, I enjoy it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah, sure, you have to still go work some maybe job you don't like during the day or whatever, but then you get to go do the thing you do. I kind of think of it like golf, right? How many of us people like go out and golf that never going to be pro golfers, and they know they're never going to be pro golfers because it's like, yeah, but I enjoy golfing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so they golf for 20, 30 years and they still, shoot in the 90s. They're not great golfers, but they keep going.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Why don't you treat the thing you really like to do? If you like acting, why aren't you treating that the same? Like,
Yep.
well, I like acting, so I'm just going to keep going. I'm hopefully going to get better. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep going out there doing another audition. Right? It's like they'll be willing to give up on something like acting that they think, well, I'm not going to make it. Okay, well, you're never going to be a pro golfer either, but I see you go to the
Yep.
golf course every week. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and
just keep going. Who cares?
yeah, and
Right?
I mean, it really is about your mindset.
Yeah,
Like you continue telling yourself, "I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it." Well, and then that's when that you won't make it.
that's right. Now, if you don't enjoy it anymore, different story. If you don't enjoy it, it's like, I hate doing it. Well, then, yeah, you should do something else, right? But
Yeah,
if you enjoy it, don't stop. Why? Makes no sense to me. Keep it as a hobby. Do it. I act on the side all the time. I do
yeah,
3 auditions a week. Haven't booked a part in 4 years, but I'm still doing my auditions every week because I have fun doing it, right? You can
yeah,
enjoy it, enjoy it.
yeah. Exactly. You just got to keep pushing yourself through, and it's kind of like what Rocky Balboa said. I believe in. I think it was Rocky 6. I believe it was when he said, um, it's not about how hard you get hit, but how hard you could get hit and keep moving forward. Like I swear, that still is one of the best quotes in a movie I've ever
Yeah,
heard.
I just actually heard that clip the other day. I was flipping through something and it
Oh,
popped up. Yeah, it's a
oh,
great though. It's a great quote.
yeah,
And so true, right?
and I mean, I'll go as far as saying that I think that that's one of the best quotes
Yeah,
ever I have
yeah,
I have ever heard. And matter of fact, I even heard that Sylvester, like when he made the first Rocky, like he was bringing it to studio after studio, and then they're saying, "Oh, I want a bigger name actor," but he was like, "No, I'm going to star in it." And
yeah,
then they're all saying no to him, but then finally someone said yes, and then again, just like
yeah.
Arnold and all these other people, they refuse to take no as an answer. And then
That's right.
look at where he's at now.
Yeah, I know. And we'd all have a different, you know, movie experience without Sylvester Stallone, right? He was like the action guy. Him and Arnold were the
Yeah,
action guys for decades, right? Like, can you imagine life without those two?
yeah,
Movies would be a lot different, right?
yeah.
So,
Kind of reminds me of that scene. I believe it was in Last Action Hero. I believe like where they had that cardboard cut of Terminator 2, but rather than Arnold, it was Sylvester. And so it would just like when you say that, it's weird because that our
yeah.
brains aren't used to seeing Sylvester as
Oh,
the
yeah.
Terminator. So
Growing up in the 80s and 90s, that's what it was. It was like you're waiting for the next Stallone, maybe for the next Arnold, Schwarzenegger flick, right? Those two action guys. Those were always like, the films of the year. Who's is bigger? Who's
yeah, yeah.
the great rivalry, even outside the actual movies, just the real life of it. Like it was like this real life competition. I think that's what made it so interesting, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, what I also learned in recent years that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well should go do what you love.
that's right. That's right.
So yeah, so I guess my final question, is there anything that you want to plug? Like are there any upcoming projects or anything in general that you want to plug?
Well, I got a couple things that are supposed to be released here in the upcoming months. I haven't got the exact dates on them. One was a film we did in Europe last year. I think it's finally on its way out pretty soon. I think it's just in its final stages, from what I hear, sound, coloring, that kind of stuff. It's an action flick, Out for Vengeance, it's called. I know the director's already working on part two, so hopefully we'll be back out there shooting part two soon. Just completed an indie film with some people that I know here. And other than that, just plugging away down been doing a lot of auditions down for the US. So hopefully I'll be down there. Now I got my visa approved, I'll hopefully be down there on a regular basis. So
Awesome,
looking
man.
forward to that. So
Awesome. Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck on that. And yeah, and I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you coming on here. And
yeah, it's great. Thanks for the invite.
yeah, of course. All right. Well, you have a fantastic day.
You too. All the best to you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
And yeah, and we will keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks,
All right,
George.
of course. See ya.
Ciao.